Okay, let's talk about the do's and the don'ts of hiring an appointment setter for your insurance sales business. Greetings and salutations. It's David Duford, owner of Duford Insurance Group, where I train and recruit agents nationally to sell things like final expense, Medicare, and annuities, both face-to-face and over the phone. Learn more about my wonderful, life-changing agency by clicking the links above or below. I appreciate you watching very much and taking time out to see what I have to say. So let's jump right in. So appointment setting. This is where you hire somebody to do the drudgery of picking up the phone and dialing. There's a lot of us out there who hate it but will do it. But there is an opportunity, if you find the right people, to outsource that appointment setting opportunity where all you have to do, besides paying them to do it, is just run the appointments, see the people, and close the deals. And if you set this up correctly from the beginning, you do a good job of finding the right person, you can have a great business where you run lots of appointments and literally turn into a closing machine just selling whatever insurance product you're selling because you've now outsourced that particular skill set to somebody who has the skill set to set appointments. So we're going to be talking about do's and don'ts of doing and hiring an appointment setter and making that work. So here are my list of recommendations. Number one, do not hire an appointment setting firm. This is something like 99% of the time that is true. There are from time to time appointment setting firms that specialize with insurance agencies. Unfortunately, they're typically short-term operations that don't yield long-term and end up basically tapping out after a year or two, if not shorter, because they can't A, handle the influx of interest, and B, handle enough appointment setters that are of decent quality and keep them on the phone setting appointments. So the problem with most appointment setting firms is that what happens is they're just a revolving door operation. People do telemarketing generally because they're looking for a job somewhere else and they can't find a job. And so what you find with most of these appointment setting firms is the money's not terribly great. The experience isn't that great either because it's telemarketing, right? You don't like it, probably why you're looking into it. And people are just arriving there because they need to have their bills paid while they look for something better. So there tends to be a quality issue when it comes to the human side of the business, keeping good people staffed, because there are numbers that agents like us have to keep the cost associated with appointment setting low enough to where it makes sense, but obviously it needs to be high enough to make sense for the callers themselves, and unfortunately it doesn't pan out often that way. And that's kind of the problem, is that ultimately with hiring appointment setting firms, is you don't know what quality control mechanism, if they have any in place for that agent. And you run the risk of having your valuable investment in leads being called on somebody who isn't that interested in being the best appointment setter they can be and is really just there on a temporal basis. And the quality you're going to get is not going to be nearly as close as being as good as yours. So what you should do instead is, if you're going to get an appointment setter, hire your own. It's an immensely better experience finding an appointment setting pro that you directly hire to work with you instead of hiring an appointment setting firm. My recommendation is to look on one of two different websites. The first would be Upwork.com, where I found tons of appointment setters personally that work for me. Or number two, on a lesser basis, but potentially good, Fiverr.com. So what is this all about? So Upwork.com, it's a freelance website. You go on there and you hire people to do different kind of tasks, jobs, etc. One of which is telemarketing. And there's a lot of telemarketers that put themselves up for hire so that you can hire them to do this thing. And in my career selling final expense insurance, I hired no less than probably 4 or 5 directly to me over the course of, I'd say, about 6 years. And most of them last about 1.5 to 2 years. And pretty much everybody I hired after doing some vetting of those appointment setters are pretty good. So I generally recommend agents that want an appointment setter to hire them. Now, the whole thing about hiring is it's different, right? You got to vet them, you got to train them, you got to monitor them. There's a bit more managerial skill set that comes into it, but the outcome is you generally pay a good price, number one, and number two, you get really good quality. And you don't have to worry about the appointment setting firm itself being in a position where they're oversaturated with agents and have to spread their callers out to multiple agents to call for them and not maximize the number of appointments. In other words, your own appointment setter will set more of your leads and be of better quality than hiring an appointment setting firm the vast majority of the time. Do not let the control or the caller control the scripting. Okay, this is a mistake I made. I didn't like appointment setting as a final expense agent. I just wanted somebody else to do it. It's like, take this from me, I don't want it. And it was so frustrating of an experience to me that I didn't even care to listen to how the agent or the rep was calling to set appointments. And so what would happen is I was ceding control over to my appointment setting person who wasn't necessarily following the best practices for appointment setting in my niche, final expense burial insurance. So make sure if you're going to outsource this responsibility that you are responsible. Make sure you're responsible for teaching that rep the full and entire script. Do make sure you have them record themselves when they set appointments so that you can critique their calls and offer suggestions for improvement. Again, you are training and developing in them a skill set of your desire. They work for you, not the other way around. So make sure they do what is the right way to set appointments and not the wrong way or the way they think is appropriate. Bottom line here, a little note here I made. Inspect what you expect, an old-fashioned managerial quote. If you expect something, you have to inspect it. You have to make sure it's done correctly. You just can't assume it is, or the patients now run the insane asylum. Number 4 in here, do pay your appointment setter well. This is a strategy that in business has always really worked for me. If you find quality people that do a quality job, you should pay them a quality wage or quality rate. Make sure that they're well compensated. The last thing you want good people to do is think they can get paid better elsewhere and that would be more appreciated elsewhere. Don't be a stickler or cheap about pay. If you've got good people, keep them with you by paying them well. The difference in pay is not going to make that much of a difference for you as far as the monetary investment, but it'll make a huge difference in the amount of time that you don't have to waste, again, losing an appointment setter because you're cheap, and then trying to find a new one to put in its place. So don't be cheap. Invest in your people who are worth it, who are good, and it'll be a good investment for you over time, and pay well more above than you trying to be a stickler. So there's my advice, my do's and don'ts for hiring an appointment setter. There should be a link below here for a longer, detailed version of this video on how to hire an appointment setter. Feel free to click that. It goes to my webpage for more details and advice on appointment setting, hiring, and outsourcing. If you'd like to join my agency to sell things like final expense, Medicare, and annuities, click the links above or below. Takes you to my website to learn more. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see y'all next time. Thank you.